priceless heritage. Hello, my hometown, forever mine since childhood. My old town Grodno is new and young today.
Benjamin Jerusalem,
the founder and first director of the Museum of the History of the Jews of Grodno region. The purpose of the museum is to recreate people's history, to preserve the memory, to remember how many people were here and how they passed away, and to remember those who are still alive. That is what we are doing. Not so long ago, one of our assistants visited Israel and brought a CD with 4 hours of memories of 91-year-old Lisa Chapnik. She was a scout during the war, a liaison between Bialystok ghetto and partisans units. She was a Grodno girl and a secretary of the underground Komsomol Regional Committee. 2012, Benjamin Jerusalem is the guest of honor in the program of Alexander Lesminsky on the Grodno TV channel Grodno Plus.
У нас сегодня есть одна из самых крупнейших в Восточной Европе синагог, которая
Today we have one of the largest synagogues in Eastern Europe, which is being rebuilt. A unique museum of Jewish culture has been opened there for the first time. The museum in Troitskaya Street. Today I have the guest of honor, Benjamin Jerusalem, the director of this museum. Benjamin, all the people, not only the Jews, but also the Belarusians, are thanking you today for creating such a museum. Our town is multinational, and thank you for the opportunity to look at one of the unique pages of the life and history of our land. You are restoring this page in bits and pieces, and it is already living in the museum today. It started with the restoration of the synagogue itself and the renovation of the future premises of the museum. This is how it all began. Priest Joseph Makarchik, Professor Edmund Yermusik, and entrepreneur Vladimir Zakhovitsky discussed the future of the museum. Artist-designer Vladimir Golovnov and historian Irina Pavlova also attended the organizing meeting. The initiative group was headed by Vladimir Zakhovitsky, a well-known entrepreneur in the Republic and general director of the Construction Furniture Association ZOV. In 2013, the Jewish Museum was merged with the Museum of the History of Religion in Grodno. Its name changed, but the essence remained the same. In winter of 2012, self-contained small boilers were installed, and the walls inside the synagogue started weeping. They were tears of joy or tears for the thousands of Jews of Grodno who had been murdered. After a while, the museum's creator, Benjamin Jerusalem, wrote these verses. We have a bouquet of nations. The earth is one, and the sun is enough for all. We ask people to respond with their hearts. There is yet much unresolved in the museum.
С 2012 года синагога активно.
Since 2012, the synagogue has been undergoing an extensive renovation. The exterior and interior decor of the building has been recreated. In 2012, we opened a museum of the history of the Jews of Grodno in the synagogue building. Let's take a walk through the halls of the museum and see just a few fragments of the exposition. The walls are decorated with paintings that represent scenes from the Jewish life. This is a collection of paintings by Anatoly Nalivayev. The paintings show synagogues in the Grodno region. Some of them no longer exist. We exhibit here a unique map presenting objects of Jewish culture. This is the result of many years' work of one of the best local historians of the Grodno region, Viktor Sayapin. A special section of the exposition is devoted to the Holocaust. During the Nazi occupation, the entire Jewish community of the town perished, and only about 200 people escaped death. Detailed information is provided about Anna Rudd and Lisa Chapnik. They took part in the underground fight against the Nazis in the Grodno ghetto. Then, with false documents, moved to Bialystok and continued their activities there.
Здесь есть стенды 4 семьи праведников мира.
There are stands of righteous among the nations, 4 families who saved Jewish children. Many famous people contributed to the culture and life of our region and town. The most valuable thing is that we remember those who were in the ghetto. We found their memories and know their stories.
Надо сказать, что музей
The museum has moved on in terms of its co-activity of recreating and preserving the memory of people's history. In this respect, the story of Professor Turevsky of Grodno Medical University, father and son Gelbergs, professors, fathers of Belarusian physiology, has appeared in the museum stands lately. And gradually, what must be found and must not be forgotten is found. Benjamin, you are restoring the unique history of the Jews of Grodno and the tragedy of the Holocaust, of which we know almost nothing today. We have many stories.
Есть у нас очень много историй, здесь много нужно телевизионного времени, чтобы
Today I would like to tell you about one of the righteous among the nations, a very interesting person, Anna Sidorovich. She is alive and lives in Grodno. She is an amazingly pure, intelligent woman. There was an article about her in the Polish newspaper Głos nad Dniem. This is my article and it is called The Fire of Love and Kindness. The photo shows the rescued girl Mila and her sons and a daughter. A month ago, Anna Sidorovich was visited by Mila's son-in-law and grandchildren who came from the United States of America. It was a meeting with tears in the eyes.
Спасенной ею девочки Миле.
Гости Анны Александровны Сидорович.
Our dear guests of Anna Alexandrovna Sidorovich.
Мы рады вас приветствовать в нашем красивом городе Гродно.
We are very glad to see you in our beautiful town Grodno.
И в нашей замечательной республике Беларусь. Я хочу сказать, что историю спасения вашей бабушки Мили и судьбу Анны Александровны я несколько лет назад записывал.
And the story about your grandmother, who was lucky to be survived during the World War II and was lucky to survive Holocaust. Yeah, and Mr. Jerusalem wrote the story about your grandmother, and just today, and today just this is the continuation of the story.
Я хочу вам подарить на русском языке эту историю. Не успел перевести только. Перескажите.
Unfortunately, we haven't translated it, but this is the story I'm telling you about. Yeah, it is in Russian, but.
Эта история носит название «Огонь любви и добра», и она была напечатана во многих газетах.
Yeah. The story is called The Fire of Love and Kindness, and it was published in many newspapers in Belarus.
В нашем музее Есть фотография маленькой Мили 42-го года.
Yeah, and there is a picture of your grandmother in the museum, and the picture is dated by the year 1942.
Там же в музее находится медаль праведницы мира Анны Александровны.
Yeah, and this medal is also in the museum на Троицкой, and this medal is called the Writers Among the Nations, right? Because Anna Alexandrovna is one of them.
Yeah. Анна Александровна Сидорович. Более полувека живет в Гродно. Праведница мира.
Anna Sidorovich has lived in Grodno for more than half a century. In 1941, she, along with her uncle and aunt, rescued a Jewish girl, Mila, who escaped with her mother from the ghetto.
На берегу речки небольшой лесок был, спасла козу. И ко мне подошла женщина с девочкой. Чуть моложе меня.
The war broke out. In October, I once grazed a goat by the river where we lived, and a woman came up to me with a girl a little younger than me and asked me for goat's milk for the girl. I said, "All right, let's go. It's already cold," and I took them home.
Девочка будет твоей сестрой, Ниной. Ее зовут Миля, но ты ни в коем случае не говори Миля, только Нина. Это была Миля Кельнер.
Mom asked me to put the goat in its place. When I came back, Mom said, "This girl will be your sister Nina. Her name is Mila, but do not call her Mila, just Nina." It was Mila Kellner. She was almost as old as my sister. But the most amazing thing was that she looked so much like my mother that everyone said, "Anya doesn't look like you, but Nina does." My mother said it was like music to her ears, which meant that it was possible to keep secret.
Приходилось видеть повешенных с таблицей.
I remember the horrors I saw. People hanged in the main square with a sign on their chest saying, "They saved the Jews." My father showed it to me so that I wouldn't laugh. After the war, Mila and her mother went to America.
Уехали в Америку.
Спасибо вам большое. Действительно, букет из наций живет.
A bouquet of nations lives in Grodno, and one of these nationalities is the Jewish one, the people who survived the tragedy of the Holocaust during the Second World War. The museum at Troitskaya is the place where the memory of this tragedy is being restored, thanks to Jerusalem and his colleagues.
И соплеменникам со всего мира восстанавливается память об этой трагедии, которую никогда никто не должен забыть и которая никогда не должна повториться.
2015 год.
2015, Riga, International Conference on the Holocaust. The creator of the Museum of the Jews of Grodno gave a presentation and information on echoes of the Holocaust. Moscow, 2016, meeting at the largest Jewish museum in the Russian Federation.
Мы в прошлом году снимали картину в Белоруссии.
Last year, we filmed a picture in Belarus called Victory of the Spirit, and we had it filmed in Grodno. This year, we had the premiere of our film in Grodno, and we met Benjamin, and so we had a joint project, a continuation and extension of the story.
Это продолжение истории, расширение истории.
Я привез вам привет из белорусского города Гродно.
I've brought you greetings from the Belarusian town of Grodno. It is a unique town. It has preserved most of its historical monuments. The epic effort to restore the synagogue began in 2012. Before the war, there were 43 synagogues in the town. Now there is only one left. It is large and majestic. I was commissioned to create a museum in the process of restoration of the synagogue. I didn't start working in search of artifacts, but I was looking for stories of the fates of the Jews of Grodno region. The fact is that 50% of the people of this nationality, 29,000, lived in Grodno in 1941. Only a couple of hundreds remained alive in 1944. By setting up the museum, we want the younger generation to know what happened during the war, giving lessons on tolerance and the Holocaust. And to conclude, I would like to quote Valentina Matvienko: "Humanity, if it wants to preserve itself, is condemned to tolerance, to finding a strategy of harmony between people of different colors and nationalities, views and beliefs."
Человечество, если оно хочет сохранить себя, обречено на толерантность, на поиск стратегии согласия людей, различающихся цветом кожи и национальностью, взглядами и убеждениями.
Играет скрипка, рыдают струны.
The violin plays, the strings weep, a Jewish tune under the moonlight, and the violin cries from the past for those places that no longer exist.
О тех местечках, которых нет.
2014 год.
2014, a former prisoner of the Grodno ghetto and 3 concentration camps talks about the torture of prisoners in the Auschwitz concentration camp. "We were forced to split on those hanged on the gallows. I once just climbed the gallows, and Rudolf Hose wanted to shoot me, but he ran out of ammo. They grabbed me and took me away. They had a special torture machine there. They tied me up, spun me around, and beat me with whips on both sides. They were beating me in every possible way, my kidneys and so on. I screamed and screamed, and then I lost consciousness, and they took me out on a stretcher."
За 10 лет работы по созданию музея
During the 10 years of work at the Museum of the Jews of Grodno, the author could prepare a significant archive of video memories from his films. This archive contains the memories of prisoners of the Grodno ghetto and concentration camps, participants of World War II, and Grodno righteous among the nations, who saved Jewish children from death during the genocide. In 2012, the son and daughter-in-law of former Grodno ghetto prisoner Anatoly Vanukevich came from Moscow.
Сегодня такой удивительный день. Впервые, наверное, такая встреча с известными людьми.
Today is such an amazing day, and for the first time we have such a meeting with famous people on the premises of the museum. Human memory has no genetic basis. If you don't write and create a museum, you can lose an entire cultural layer. Today we are visited by the son and daughter-in-law of Anatoly Vanukevich, a prisoner of the Grodno ghetto who lives in Moscow.
На 22 июня договорились с группой идти в Пышки отдыхать, плавать, купаться, гулять.
On June the 22nd, we agreed with the group to go to Pishki forest to rest, swim, bathe, walk, and so on. But those were the plans. But what actually happened was that already at night, when it was dark, they started bombing the Soviet Union, including Grodno. He ended up in the ghetto like all the other Jews. Life in the ghetto was horrible, but he had a better chance of survival than those who were in a concentration camp. He was lucky. Fate saved him from the death camp, but failed to save his family.
Меня схватили 13 февраля.
My father and I were captured on the 13th of February 1943 and by deception taken to Treblinka. On the way to Treblinka, I managed to jump out of the train on the move just before Treblinka. When the train was going at its highest speed, they shot at me and didn't hit me.
Они стреляли в меня и не попали.
Минають годы молодые и лепших.
The young years pass, and we wait in vain for better years. And where can we get even a little bit, just a little bit of happiness and luck?
Где взять нам хоть трошечки, ну, хоть бы трошечки счастья, удачи придбать?
Григорий Исаакович Обелевский.
Grigory Obilevsky, a living legend, a defender of Stalingrad and honorary citizen of Grodno. On September the 1st, 1942, I was 17. The Stalingrad Regional Komsomol Committee appealed to all young people and to the entire population, all for the defense of the city. They served us with the summonses and sent us to the assembly point of the military enlistment office. There we took a month-long training course for a young fighter. At the end of September, we were sent as a marching company to the front. I was in a separate reconnaissance company attached to the 6th Guards Motorized Rifle Division, 64th Army, which defended Stalingrad. There, I got both combat training and baptism on fire. Soon we became professional scouts. At Stalingrad, I received my first combat award, the Medal of Combat Merit, which is the dearest to me among all awards that I received during the war and after it.
Награду медаль за боевые заслуги, которая для меня самая дорогая среди всех наград, получил в годы войны и после войны.
Судьба Иосифа Обковича.
Iosif Obkovich's fate is tragic and bright. He passed through Grodno ghetto, Auschwitz, Buchenwald, Ramstadt, and remained a human. It was June 1941. We went to bed, and in the morning, at 3:30, they started bombing our town, because we were 40 kilometers from the border. When they brought us to the ghetto, they stopped us at the entrance, took our best belongings away, and put 7 or 8 families in one house in the ghetto. In 1942, they started taking us to the camps, but no one knew where and what we were going to do. They took our whole family to the station. We were on the train for about 6 days, and we were brought to Birkenau. Listen. Our fellow countryman who had gone through all the circles of hell, Iosif Obkovich, is singing.
Слушайтесь, поет наш земляк, прошедший все круги ада, Иосиф Обкович.
Steht der Bucher ganze Nacht, steht und Säu und Tracht. So soll ich hier nehmen und nicht verschämen, nefscher Zweite soll ich mir nehmen. Tumbalai, spiel balalaike, tumbalai, spiel balalaike, tumbalalaike, spiel balalaike, freilich soll sein.
Вспоминает праведница мира Гродненка Наумюк Марина Михайловна.
The righteous among the nations from Grodno, Marina Naumyuk, is recalling. She talks about the rescue of the Jewish boy Iona Zaretsky. Iona's last hope was Aunt Nadia, his mother's friend. He came running to Studentcheskaya Street and knocked at the door. Nadezhda opened the door. It was in the early morning, and here was a boy standing in front of her. He was very thin and pale and so unhappy. When she saw him, she immediately woke up her husband and son and asked, "Well, what shall we do?" They couldn't answer yet, as she had already said, "Are we going to let him die?" And she let him in. There was a closet in the kitchen and another closet in that one. The first closet was nice and the second was under the stairwell. It was cold and all cement. It was oblique. Iona was placed there. He was very small and could stand up to his full height only at the front of the closet. He was given a mattress, a paraffin lamp, and a toilet bowl. He had lived there for almost a year and a half, and of course, no one could have known about it.
Маленький ростом, он мог только встать вот в начале, а уже дальше был вот так вот. Ну вот ему там поместили, значит, матрас дали керосиновую лампу. Он прожил почти 1,5 года. И, конечно, никто не мог знать об этом.
Many of the documents found during the search are unique. Such is the letter of the rescued Jewish boy Iona Zaretsky to the Naumuk's family. It comes from back in 1944. Dear Aunt Nadia, Daddy and Boba, my dears, great deeds are not to be thanked for, because it looks like an attempt to equate something incommensurably great with something unquestionably small. Always, always I will remain indebted to you, and God willing, I will never have to pay equally for all that each of you and all of you together have done for me. It was beyond human strength and ability, and only God can adequately reward all the experiences, the dangers, and the constant risk you took for me. I kiss you. Grodno, July 22nd, 1944.
1944 года. Этот паспорт
This passport, in the name of Maria Mrozovska, was issued by the Gendarmerie of Bialystok in 1942. It bears the photo of the underground fighter Lisa Chapnik from Grodno. Lisa Chapnik was born on the 22nd of January 1922 in the town of Grodno. While in Bialystok, she took an active part in the activities of the underground anti-fascist organization in the Bialystok ghetto and liaised with the partisan units operating in the area. In the Bialystok ghetto, there were indeed preparations for an uprising. Therefore, weapons had to be delivered and found. The weapons were found in various ways. You know, what I remember most from the ghetto are the children's eyes. In the ghetto, 5- and 6-year-old children were so terribly sad, they never smiled.
Никогда не улыбающийся.
Музейная деятельность не ограничивается городом Гродно.
The museum activities are not limited to the town of Grodno. The footage shows a requiem meeting in the township of Dyatlova. Over 2,000 Jews killed by the Nazis were buried here, right in the forest. When the Germans came in 1941, after a couple of months, the Jews were given yellow stars on the front and back. They were not allowed to walk on the sidewalks. A lorry came to Dyatlova Square. They put a stool and loaded children, women, and elderly people into the lorry and took them to the place of execution.
И увозили к месту расстрела. Посещая эту могилу, понимаешь, что
Visiting this grave, you understand that Holocaust means, and it's bad that the world is forgetting it. That is why we come here, to honor the memory of those people, as we honor our relatives.
почитаем уже этих людей, хоть одну могилу, которую мы знаем.
We wish that there would be only peace in our blossoming land.
Память о еврейском культурном наследии города.
The memory of the European cultural heritage of the town of Grodno is reflected in the museum in a short story about the memory of the poet Leonidas. Poet and translator Leonidas lived a short but bright life. Out of his 28 years, 11 of them were devoted to poetry. He was a lyricist of joyful optimism and brought a unique beauty of nature and rich palette of colors to Jewish poetry. Today it's hard to imagine that real literary history was being made in this street at the beginning of the last century. It was here, in house number 1, where Leonidas lived and wrote his works. He was called the master of Jewish poetry. Works by Pushkin, Lermontov, Verlaine and Goethe, in his translations into Yiddish, were read by Jews all over Europe. His own poems were printed in school textbooks. His parents saw him as a future merchant, but his rebellious spirit and love of literature made him a poet.
Кто же, кроме известного
Who, apart from the famous entrepreneur Vladimir Zakovetsky, helped to create the museum at Troitskoye? Marina Shapilevich, a talented woman and philologist. She has been involved in creating many of the museum's exhibitions since the early days. She is the author of an exclusive documentary book about Lisa Chapnik. Her talent found expression in the film she made about the righteous among the nations from Grodno in Polish.
Medal и диплом.
The decision to confer the title and medal of the righteous among the nations was made in Jerusalem in 1963. He who saves one soul saves the whole world. These are the words from the Talmud engraved on the medal. Since March 6, 2013, the European Day of the Righteous has been celebrated. 6,620 Polish people were awarded Righteous among the Nations medals. From the very beginning of the creation of the museum at Troitskoye, the press of Grodno provided great informational support to Benjamin in Jerusalem.
С первых дней появления музея
The friendship of Benjamin in Jerusalem with one of the best Jewish ensembles in Belarus, Shalom from Lida, has been lasting for 10 years since the museum was established. I would like to introduce to you the permanent leader of the ensemble, Mikhail Dwilansky, the soloist Irina Solomina, and the clarinetist Stanislav Mishkel.
מתוך ההלם עלה קולו לא סערה הייתה בו ולא אש רק פעל הלילה בדמי הלילה וכל אדם לוחש פעל הלילה ראש עירים אשכחך ירושלים פעל הלילה שמעשני בארץ ישראל בללייקה, בללייקה אותי שמעשני בארץ ישראל.
Несколько лет подряд создатель музея проводит в учебных учреждениях Гродно уроки толерантности.
For several years now, the founder of the museum has been giving lessons on tolerance at educational institutions of Grodno, for which he has received many commendations from schools in the town. The 25th of September 2021, Benjamin Jerusalem is giving a lesson on tolerance at Janka Kupala State University of Grodno.
2013 год.
2013, a concert by the Shalom Ensemble at the Museum of the History of Religion. Dear guests of the two museums, the Museum of the History of Religion and the Museum of Jews of Grodno at Troitskoye. Today we have an amazing and extraordinary concert, and I would like to introduce the participants. The ensemble Shalom from Lida. In 2.5 years, it will be 20 years old. The permanent ensemble leader, Mikhail Dwilansky, an amazing soloist and singer Irina Solomina, and the clarinetist Stanislav Mishkel.
Наша удивительная певица, солистка Ирина Соломина. Кларнетист Станислав Мишкель.
Еще раз огромное вам спасибо. Ну, следующая песня называется «Лехаим».
The next song is Lehaim, to life. Lehaim is a toast. Let there be health and peace.
Будьте здоровы. Пусть будет мир.
Сейчас звучит песня по многочисленным просьбам.
Now a song by popular demand and in particular for Benjamin, Hava Nagila.
Среди тех, кто постоянно помогает Беньямину,
among those who constantly help Benjamin in his work is his sister Celia Holman, who lives far away but is always there for him.
Несколько документальных фильмов из
Several documentaries from the museum archive were made with the participation of Maxim Parhamchuk, a videographer from the Younger Kupala State University of Grodno.
Юлия Дунаева.
Yulia Dunaeva, the head of sales at the Grodno Advertising Studio Limited. Yulia participated in the design and production of all the museum stands.
Vladimir и Alla Vanukevich.
Vladimir and Alla Vanukevich are pictured with their daughter Katya, the son and daughter-in-law of a former prisoner of the Grodno ghetto, actively cooperate with the museum, supporting morally and financially.
Natalia Shmatko.
Natalia Shmatko, a journalist, the author of many documentaries, including those on the museum, a very sympathetic person.
Евгений Фалеев, кинодокументалист.
Evgeny Faleev, a documentary filmmaker, the director and author of television programs for children. He is talented in everything, the author of many museum documentaries and film memoirs.
Natalia Резник.
Natalia Reznik, a guardian angel, great sponsor of Benjamin and simply a beloved niece, lives in Toronto, Canada. Natalia is pictured with her husband Andrew.
Михаил Семенович Корж.
Mikhail Korsh has done much to restore the ruined facades of the synagogue as well as to insulate the floor of its prayer hall, and has helped with the renovation and decoration of the museum at Troitska.
Спонсор музейных проектов.
The sponsor of the museum projects is Mikhail Rubinstein, the director of techno-service company in Grodno.
Эсфирь Кирзнер.
Yesvil Kisner. Her creativity constantly helps to create the museum's projects. This is the tree planted by her and Boris Kratkovsky in memory of the parish Jews of Grodno. In autumn, the tree looks like it is on fire, with its leaves glowing. Führer called it a Holocaust fire.
Спонсор музейных проектов.
The sponsor of the museum projects is Alexander Semenaka, a programmer at techno-service company in Grodno.
Еврейские глаза, еврейские глаза.
Jewish eyes, the sea of unsettled salty words. Jewish eyes, what can I tell you? You are the sorrow and grief that never goes away. Jewish eyes. I will recognize you from 1,000 eyes in the crowd. Jewish eyes, sad eyes. I kneel before you.
Еврейские глаза, средь тысяч глаз в толпе я вас узнаю. Еврейские глаза, печальные глаза, пред вами я колени преклоняю.
Сейчас ему 20 до 100.
He is 80, full of vigor and creative energy. 8 documentaries, 3 exclusive books, lessons on tolerance at schools, at universities. All these are his contributions to a priceless heritage.
Where is the village, the place of my youth? Where